Jess Hernandez.
And I'm Jamie Sansa.
And we're presenting on Black economic empowerment. So what is Black economic empowerment? It is a racially selective program that was implemented by the South African government that redressed the inequalities in the apartheid system. And it gives previously disadvantaged South African citizens economic privileges.
So, Black economic empowerment was first implemented in 2003 as a pragmatic growth strategy. The ANC wanted direct intervention in the redistribution of assets and opportunities. So the main purpose is to help the South African economy reach its full potential and includes Black majority in the economy. Then in 2007, there was new codes of good practice introduced in the broad-based Black economic empowerment, which really defined the scorecard aspect, which has 7 elements. And it's used in economic decisions such as procurement and public and private licensing. So what broad-based Black economic empowerment does is it splits the companies and businesses of South Africa into 3 separate groups. So you have your exempted micro enterprises, which are your small businesses that do not have to comply with the rules of Black economic empowerment and instead are given an automatic level contributor status. Then you have your qualifying small enterprises, which are also small businesses, but they have a greater annual turnover. And they do have to comply with the scorecard rules, but they can choose 4 out of the 7. And then for generic enterprises, these are your big companies that have to do the full scorecard, so all 7 elements, and they get points based on the elements, and that's their overall score. So these are your 7 elements of the scorecard. So you have ownership equity, which is the ownership of a business by Black employees that have an interest in the company. Then you have your management control, which is the decision-making power of Black employees within the company. Employment equity is the demographics of the company and how well they successfully achieved equity in the workplace. Skills development is the training that they have for increasing the skills of their Black employees. Preferential procurement is a company looking at their suppliers' BE credentials, not just their own, but their suppliers. Enterprise development is the transaction between the Black and white businesses. So like a white company would financially and developmentally support a smaller Black business. And the last one, socioeconomic development, is contributions, monetary and non-monetary, made to help bring the Black majority into the economy. So this is an example of your scorecard. On the left, you have the 7 elements and the weighing points. And based on that, you get the recognition level and an overall level. And the higher level that you and your suppliers are, the more benefits you'll get from it. And the government will only do business if you can prove your credentials.
So how does the South African Black economic empowerment policy compare to the United States and affirmative action? So I highlighted some similarities between the two. Affirmative action primarily focuses on education and employment, and it grants special consideration to racial minorities and women who were historically excluded groups within America. So an important Supreme Court case in the U.S. called Grutter versus Bollinger, it actually occurred in 2003. It was about a white woman who applied to the University of Michigan Law School, and she had all the qualifications, but she was denied. And she had a lawsuit against the school, and the school admitted to using a race-conscious admissions program. And ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the law school, and it upheld the decision to allow colleges and universities to use race as a component in admissions processing. So this is actually a chart that I found that shows certain states that ban affirmative action in the U.S. And going along with Michigan, they actually passed Proposal 2, which bans affirmative action in the state, but in response, the law school in the previous court case added a socioeconomic factor into their admissions review to give minorities an advantage in the admissions process.
So along with affirmative action in the U.S. and BEE in South Africa, you have economy systems like this across the globe. And one of the major ones is in India, and it's based on a caste system. So just a little bit about the caste system. It's the socially stratification of the country. So you have your 5 groups of people, and as you can see, the top 3 groups makes up 17 to 18%, whereas the bottom is half the population, over 160 million people, who are deemed untouchable, and therefore they are less than human and they are impure. And based on all of this historical deprivation and the constant discrimination, they implemented the reservation system, which is a quota-based affirmative action, and it works in places like public jobs, education, especially in colleges, as well as scholarships and elected assemblies, which is where they have groups of people from each caste who represent the people of their caste. And different ways that this is implemented is through the Constitution of India, so specifically Article 15, which just makes discrimination based on caste illegal, and Article 17, which is untouchability, which is deeming the untouchables less than human. That is also made illegal through the reservation system. And like all systems like this, there's pros and cons. So pros would be education spreading equally and reducing inequalities, while a lot of people say this is still against their natural rights and can harbor ill will if it benefits one caste system more than another.
So when we look at the statistics of South Africa 10 years after apartheid, this is particularly in 2002, the population was around like 80% black, and you can see out of that like 79, 80%, 47.8% were unemployed or just gave up looking for work altogether. And you can see obviously the difference in disposable incomes between whites and blacks. And in 2002, this was the year before black economic empowerment was actually implemented in South Africa, so it shows the need for it.
So jumping ahead a little bit, this graph shows the increase in income. And as you can see in 87, the black population was making less than 1,000, and by 2008 they reached an important milestone of 10,000. So while this does show growth, it also shows that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, as you can see the difference between the groups.
Overall, affirmative action and black economic empowerment are controversial in some sense, because there's an argument that says, oh, if we give these people an advantage, is it taking away from non-minority groups? But ultimately, it shows that it is benefiting them, and I think that the implementation of both policies were good. So that is it.
Is there any questions?
Questions? What are some of the controversies, or how do many South Africans feel about black economic empowerment?
Well, there is a lot of proof that it is working, but there's also, kind of similar to what happened in India, there's still groups that aren't benefiting as well in South Africa. So it's definitely a process that needs more time to work itself out.
What's the difference between, what's one of the main differences between affirmative action in the United States and black economic empowerment in South Africa from a population standpoint?
So in South Africa, it's obviously dominantly, like the dominant population is black, and in America, the population like between whites and blacks is a lot more equal. So the differences there are significant, because in South Africa, black economic empowerment is benefiting majority of the population, whereas affirmative action in the U.S. only benefits like half to maybe less than the population.
Other questions? Thank you very much.